The early days of June 2025 marked a significant turn in the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Over the weekend of June 1st and 2nd, Ukrainian forces launched a series of daring drone attacks. These attacks targeted Russian airbases deep within Russian territory. Ukraine made bold claims following these operations. They stated that their explosive drones, reportedly smuggled across the border, had successfully destroyed dozens of Russia's valuable long-distance bombers. Some of these bombers were even nuclear-capable, adding a layer of gravity to the Ukrainian assertions. This was a clear message from Kyiv. Ukraine was still very much in the fight, capable of inflicting serious damage. Just days later, on Tuesday, June 3, 2025, the conflict saw another dramatic development. Ukraine's Internal Security Service, the SBU, announced it had successfully executed a special operation. This operation targeted the Kerch Bridge, a vital artery connecting mainland Russia to the occupied Crimean Peninsula. The bridge is not just a logistical route, it is a deeply symbolic project for Russian President Vladimir Putin, representing Russia's claim over Crimea. Striking it was a direct blow to Russian prestige and its ability to supply forces in the south. The attack underscored Ukraine's growing confidence and sophistication in its military endeavors, demonstrating an ability to reach high-value targets. While Ukraine celebrated these perceived victories, independent verification of the full extent of the damage, particularly at the airbases, proved challenging. Open-source intelligence analysts and satellite imagery could not immediately confirm all of Ukraine's claims. The fog of war, as always, made definitive assessments difficult in the immediate aftermath. However, even if the physical damage was less than initially proclaimed, the psychological impact of these strikes was undeniable. Russia, which had often projected an image of invincibility regarding its deep strategic assets, was shown to be vulnerable to Ukrainian ingenuity and determination. The world watched closely, trying to discern the true impact. These operations, targeting both military air power and critical infrastructure, represent a clear escalation in Ukraine's military tactics. For a long time, the conflict was characterized by fighting primarily within Ukrainian borders. Now, Ukraine was demonstrating a consistent capability and willingness to strike deep into Russian-held territory and even Russia itself. This shift signaled a new phase, where Ukraine aimed to take the fight more directly to the aggressor. It was a bold strategy, designed to disrupt Russian operations, sap their resources, and challenge the narrative that Russia could wage this war without consequences on its own soil. The impact of these audacious military operations resonated deeply within Ukraine, providing a significant and much-needed morale boost. After more than 3 years of grueling warfare, with its immense human cost and widespread destruction, moments of clear success were vital. These drone strikes and the Kerch Bridge attack directly countered the pervasive narratives, some reportedly amplified by figures like former US President Donald Trump, suggesting that Ukraine was on the brink of defeat or inevitable collapse. For ordinary Ukrainians, these actions were a powerful symbol of resistance and enduring strength, a sign that their country was still fighting back effectively. Oleksiy Goncharenko, a prominent member of Ukraine's parliament from the opposition European Solidarity Party, voiced this sentiment clearly. He described the drone operations as great, and lauded them as a significant morale victory for the Ukrainian people. However, Goncharenko also offered a dose of realism. While expressing hope that these successes might push Russia towards considering a ceasefire, he cautioned that these actions, however impactful, doesn't change everything. He acknowledged that such strikes were unlikely to immediately alter the overall strategic situation on the vast front lines or bring a swift end to the conflict. Professor Volodymyr Dubovik, from Odessa Mechnikov National University, provided further insight into the complex mood within Ukraine. He acknowledged that exhaustion among the Ukrainian population is very real after such a prolonged and brutal war. The daily toll of conflict, the displacement, and the constant threat take an immense psychological and physical toll. Yet, despite this weariness, Professor Dubovik emphasized that Ukrainians are far from ready to capitulate or accept Russia's harsh conditions for a ceasefire. These conditions, such as recognizing Russian sovereignty over occupied territories and accepting severe restrictions on their future military capabilities, remain wholly unacceptable to the vast majority of Ukrainians. Therefore, the recent military successes, while celebrated, are viewed through a pragmatic lens by many in Ukraine. They offer a flicker of hope and a reminder of Ukraine's capabilities, but they do not erase the profound challenges that lie ahead. The national spirit, though battered, remains resilient. The desire for a just peace, one that doesn't involve surrendering their sovereignty or future security, continues to fuel their determination. These attacks serve as a testament to that unwavering resolve, even as the nation braces for the continued hardships and uncertainties of a protracted war, understanding that victory is a marathon, not a sprint. The Ukrainian strikes quickly reverberated on the international stage, drawing reactions from key global figures. Former U.S. President Donald Trump, a significant voice in American politics, notably refrained from publicly criticizing or endorsing Ukraine's cross-border operations. His silence was conspicuous. However, behind the scenes, the issue was clearly on his agenda. On Wednesday, June 4, 2025, Trump engaged in an hour-long telephone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin. During this call, the recent attacks were a prominent topic of discussion, highlighting the delicate diplomatic tightrope being walked by international leaders as the conflict evolved in unpredictable ways. According to Trump's own account of the call, President Putin promised a Russian response to the Ukrainian attacks. This statement immediately raised concerns about potential retaliation and further escalation of the conflict. Adding another layer to the interaction, Russian aide Yuri Ushakov claimed that during their conversation, Trump had assured Putin that the United States had no advanced knowledge of Ukraine's drone operations. This detail, if accurate, suggests an attempt by Trump to distance the U.S. from Ukraine's more aggressive actions, perhaps to manage potential blowback or to keep channels open with Moscow for his own diplomatic initiatives. President Putin's public stance, as reported by Russian state media outlet RIA Novosti, was predictably harsh. During his call with Trump and likely in other communications, Putin accused Ukraine of deliberately trying to disrupt any potential negotiations or peace efforts. He went further, labeling the government in Kyiv as a terrorist organization. This rhetoric is standard for Moscow, aimed at delegitimizing the Ukrainian leadership and justifying Russia's own actions. The promise of a Russian response, however, was the most ominous part of Moscow's reaction, signaling that the Kremlin was unlikely to let these Ukrainian successes pass without consequence. Russia officially doubled down on this stance, issuing a stark warning that it would respond to Ukraine's drone attacks how and when it sees fit. Such open-ended threats are designed to create uncertainty and fear, not just in Ukraine but also among its international partners. The international community watched with bated breath as these developments raised serious fears of further escalation. Each action and reaction in this deadly chess game carried the risk of widening the conflict or leading to even more destructive methods of warfare, making the path to a peaceful resolution seem ever more distant and fraught with peril. Despite the morale boost and the demonstration of tactical prowess, Ukraine's daring drone strikes do not fundamentally alter some of the most pressing challenges the country faces. Chief among these is the persistent concern about the sustainability of U.S. support for its war effort. For years, American military, financial, and humanitarian aid has been crucial for Ukraine's ability to resist Russian aggression. However, political shifts and differing priorities within the United States have created an environment of uncertainty. These successful attacks, while showcasing Ukrainian capability, cannot by themselves guarantee the continued flow of essential resources from Washington, a lifeline for Kyiv. This uncertainty is compounded by statements from figures like former President Trump. During an Oval Office meeting with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Trump reportedly suggested it might be better to let Ukraine and Russia fight for a while rather than immediately pushing for peace talks. This approach, perceived as a willingness to prolong the suffering or to disengage, has understandably caused frustration and anxiety in Ukraine. It contrasts sharply with the pleas of allies like Chancellor Merz, who urged Trump during that same meeting to actually increase pressure on Russia to end the conflict, highlighting the differing views on how to manage the war. In response to these challenges, Ukraine continues its diplomatic efforts tirelessly. A Ukrainian delegation, including high-ranking officials like Deputy Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko and Presidential Office Head Andriy Yermak, recently met with U.S. senators in Washington. Their agenda was comprehensive, discussing arms purchases, ongoing defense support, battlefield updates, the imposition of further sanctions on Russia, and securing funding for reconstruction. Ukrainian Minister of Strategic Industries Yuri Sak also publicly called for increased U.S. sanctions and greater pressure on Moscow, especially in response to Russia's relentless missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. Ultimately, Ukraine's recent daring military actions serve as a powerful testament to its enduring strength, ingenuity, and unwavering resolve to defend its sovereignty. These operations have undoubtedly challenged Russia and provided a much-needed psychological lift for the Ukrainian people. However, they do not represent a silver bullet. The war is far from over, and the path ahead is fraught with immense difficulties. Ukraine's future still hinges on a complex interplay of its own military resilience, the steadfastness of international support, and the unpredictable dynamics of a brutal and protracted conflict that continues to demand courage and sacrifice.